was coaching.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to be doing the color portion of the commentating for the home games, so
Okay.
that'll be kind of fun. So I'm talking to him about that a little bit more, and yeah.
Are you
So,
keeping busy?
yeah, like every day. I mean, yeah, hopefully the weather holds at the end of the month because I've been an avid motorcyclist for years. I used to road race motorcycles, all that, and we're supposed to go on a ride, like 1,000-mile ride, the end of this month, but just got to see if the weather holds up. The only deal breaker, well, two deal breakers. One is snow, and then one is consistent rain because the romance of riding in the rain is long since gone.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah.
Well, Hell's joined us, and I see Sammy's on. Sammy, you've got a new logo behind you. I'm going to get you a chance to explain it and catch up on what you're doing because you've been a busy young lady. Go ahead.
I have been, but mostly, Wally, I wanted to congratulate you. I feel like so many of our friends and colleagues and everything went out to the renaming of the rink and said it was really, really special. So I hope you had a good time.
It was a great time, Sammy. The Kelly Bouchard and Carla were there as players, and a number of people. They got to go on the bench during the ceremony, and close by. I put a 3-minute video together of it that I'll send to all of you of
Great.
the whole thing. And there's a lot of Sharks that came, Calgary Sharks. So I got selfies with them, and it was just a neat ceremony. It's when you do things all your life, like all of you have, it don't do it for this reason. And I'm really glad I got a chance. Tim Bothwell, I'll send the typing of the memorial plaque. Tim wrote it, and it was all about transmitting belief. I thought it was an amazing reflection of what we do, and I think. But I'll send you the edited link. It's got some music to it, and there was uh, two U18 teams on the ice during the ceremony, with two U9 teams during the ceremony, and they U18s played a game and the U9s played each other in between periods. So Sam Holmes was the first speaker, and of course she knew me like you guys did, and the politicians after that, they were repeating the same thing she said, and they weren't able to change the footing. It was the wording. Anyway, it was just a great opportunity. So, uh, Brian, are you on, Brian? Have you got your speaker on? Well, I'll get him to come on later. I think you all know Brian. He coached Team China at the Olympics. And Sammy, I'm going to turn it over to you. I didn't know what we were going to do today, but I wanted to make sure when you came on, what are you doing?
All right. Okay. Yes, Wally. I feel like lots has happened since I've last been on the Sharks call. I've been sort of in and out listening to some of the calls, but this is the first time I really blocked it off in my schedule so that I could see you guys again. So, yeah, I became at the start of October the president of the Toronto Six, which is in the Premier Hockey Federation. And to be honest, it wasn't an easy job to take initially. I've been courted by the T6 for, I want to say, about 3 years. And I think I want to say rift, for lack of a better term, in women's hockey right now. When the CWHL folded, for me, that was really hard. There's a lot of grief that went with that, having built up this organization that ultimately didn't succeed was really hard. And so taking a step back, and Billy and I, my husband, decided to simply support the athletes that we knew. And they were starting to take different sides, whether they started playing in the PHF or they started playing in the PWHPA. And there really wasn't much communication between the two sides at all. And the PHF continued to grow and continued to attract people that I really respected in the game. Reagan Carey as the commissioner, comes from USA Hockey. I have a lot of respect for her, but also people like Ken Dufton, Mel Davidson, Lisa Haley, all were getting involved. And then when I worked the TSN World Championships, I was able to have a conversation with Brianna Decker and just ask her, why now? Like, why did you decide to help with the PHF and not continue with the PWHPA? And she basically just said she wanted to be involved in something, and she wanted to be around. She wanted to make a difference, really. And that's what I was realizing was within the PWHPA, I have total respect for those girls and what they're doing, but it doesn't include any administration. So there is no jobs outside of being a player within the PWHPA. So I knew that if I wanted to have a job in hockey, and in women's hockey specifically, it was either with a federation, with Hockey Canada, or with Ontario Women's Hockey or something like that, or it was with this team. So I started to re-explore the Toronto Six, and I was completely floored when I realized what they had. I had no idea, I guess. You watch from the outside, and you just you assume certain things because certain things come through the grapevine. But when I walked into this organization, not only did I have a full-time job, but I had Angela James, Hall of Famer, as my GM, and I have Geraldine Heaney as my coach, who's also a Hall of Famer. But more than that, the player salaries are $1 million Canadian, so $750,000 US is our cap, which means we have players making $70,000, $80,000. I had no idea that existed. We have a dressing room, we have a player's lounge, we have a coach's room. They're on the ice for practice 3 days a week for 2 hours, and then have an extra skill session, then play on the weekends. Their gym is right there, their medical facility is right there, and the whole rink is decked out with this Toronto Six paraphernalia that I guess I just had no idea. And I think that's, the issue right now with women's hockey is the lack of knowledge on both sides of the conversation, and realizing that both sides are simply trying to build something for the women. But if you're a player right now in women's hockey, it's an exciting time because you have so many choices, and you have, while the pathway might seem very convoluted, there's more choices than have ever been in the game, whether you play the PHF or the PWHPA or overseas. I mean, there's so many options for a woman to make a full-time career in the game, not only on the ice, but in administrative roles as well. So it has been exciting. As anybody know that's ever been in management, the first couple weeks are trying to figure out who your staff even are. I have 25 people working for me, and just simply meeting with them and figuring out who is who has been quite a challenge. And the roles that everybody has, the roles that everybody wants to play versus what they currently have, has been challenging. We did our first mock run through of a preseason game, so figuring out how to work with the game day staff and all that kind of stuff. So it's been really exciting so far. One of our players threw out the opening pitch for the Blue Jays game, and then we unveiled our team at the Hockey Hall of Fame in the Great Hall. So some really amazing things for these women, to really treat them as professionals, and for them to see themselves as professionals, because this is a big jump for a lot of them to now be a full-time hockey player. So exciting times in women's hockey, and I'm trying to utilize all of the things that I learned from the Sharks and transmit that belief not only to my staff but to the players as well, and really have that permeated throughout the organization, so that we represent the community, but also inclusiveness and equality, and really don't just, it's not performative, that we really act on it. So my first weekend there, we had Kendra Fisher, who's a friend of mine, who was a goalie partner, come in and talk about mental health and her journey through anxiety and OCD, and what that's like, but also gave the girls coping strategies, and gave us in Toronto an access to a whole network of resources that I don't think that players necessarily knew was there, but I think is so important right now in the game. So yeah, it's really fun to be back in the game. It was really fun to be back in coach's room with Ange and Jer and just feel like, you haven't missed a beat. So I didn't realize what I was missing until I got back into this organization. So it's been a lot of fun so far. That was a long diatribe, Wally, but I'll throw it back to you.
It's great to see the smile on your face and the authentic joy of being in the game. Are you still coaching your daughter?
Yes, so we practice every Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m., which much to Billy, I don't know that Billy realized, my husband realized what he was signing up for. I don't know why they have kids, like first year kids as the first ones on the ice. That seems so bananas to me. Like, why are organizations not putting the kids that they want to be involved for the rest of their lives at 10 or 11 a.m.? I don't know. They should be putting rep kids at this time or something. But regardless, we've made do. And I just think it's amazing to be out there on the ice with these little girls. But I also got one of the women from my rec hockey team that started playing hockey later in life. She's 65. And she's helping coach. She's always wanted to coach her entire life. And so she's helping coach. So I have her, a 65-year-old woman, Billy in a sled, and myself coaching these little girls. And I just think what an experience for these little girls for the rest of their lives. So so far that's been really fun. We haven't played any games yet. It's all about development, but I've been pleasantly surprised at the Oakville Hornets development. They have, like Leaside and Kim, they have a coach developer who has basically been running the practices up until now, supplying all the pucks and cones and practice plans. And the coaches simply do the stations and help with the lines for the skating. And there's a real emphasis on skating, which I've been also pleasantly surprised at. And most importantly, my daughter for the first time really loves the game. So that's been really a joy. So I, if nothing else, she's having fun, and that's all that matters.
I was recognized having this arena named after me for my role in female hockey, and for all of the our listeners and most of the American friends. I did work with the men's national team for years, and I did coach major junior hockey. But once I transitioned to take on the Oval team, leading Olympic Oval team at the University of Calgary, which is all female prospects for the national team, I really found out how to coach, because the ladies, the emotional intelligence of them, they want to know why you're doing what you're doing, and you learn how to coach. And I know for a fact that talking to NHL people, that they're beginning to understand what women have to offer sports, not just on the ethical side, but I think on the development side of the game, focusing on the emotional side and motivational side. It's really, really huge. So I'm now sort of totally immersed into it, and I know most Tom and others, a lot of guys are really caught up with the NHL. And I was going to ask Tom, did you go to the most recent Flames game?
Yeah, I did.
And
Versus Vegas.
we know they've made a great trade with losing two superstars, which I thought did not help the chemistry of a team. But what's your observation on how they're doing, and the player trade they made, and how you think they're going to move forward?
Well, I just think, excuse me, I think that the way they play so hard. Like the fourth line was their best line. And the first 10 minutes, they didn't play very well. Markstrom let in a long shot from the blue line, a wrist shot, first shot of the game. And first
Always blame the goalie.
Yeah, they didn't play very well. And then the fourth line went out there and really finished checks and forecheck like crazy. And everybody seemed to wake up. and they ended up out shooting Vegas 40-21, and the shots were basically even after the first period.
Yeah.
But they've got 4 lines that are really good. Their top line hasn't done much except on the power play now, but they play so hard, and that's the thing about them. They just outcompete the other teams.
You know, I got off the phone just before we got on the call with Thomas Pacina in Prague. He's working for the Maple Leafs he's
All the
development
Sharks
coach.
work for them now.
Pardon?
All the Sharks work for the Leafs now.
He is responsible for European player development of the players that are the Leaf property, and he's really happy with that. He enjoyed his female experience there, but now working with the Leafs, he discovered, like I do, that a great organization. And it's interesting how he said now he's working for Haley, and their son Noah. They laugh. Thomas and Noah laugh about that because she's really morphed into an influential leadership role, combining general managing duties with her emergency healthcare work. And I'll just share with us, Tom, his observation and Haley's is they need more sandpaper. He said more players from Saskatchewan. And I said more like Ailey Wickenheiser. And that's true. Look at the Oilers and all the superstar teams. The challenge there is enormous in terms of creating a real team like Calgary seems to have. Whether it'll go all the way or not, I don't know. But the point is the best team wins in my eyes. And I think Calgary's on the right track. It's really entertaining to watch. Sammy, I hope we get to the point in female hockey where everybody's talking about the girls and what they're doing. I know when the Olympics are on, I'm absolutely engrossed in the 2 big teams and the prospective teams that are pushing, but I'm more endeared to this sort of that second tier of players that are closer together in competition, trying to get to the first tier. So it's a long ways until the next Olympics, but I'm sure curious about what's going to happen.
Well, and Wally, for the first time ever, this league is showing all their games on ESPN and TSN. So hopefully that will create more fans too, so that people start to know who these players are.
Okay. Michael, I'm just finished editing last week's session. I found some really nice segments in it. I'm probably going to send them all out just with the title and the link and the length of the link, no descriptors. But I'll attach the detailed descriptors at the bottom in an attachment. So if people want to read that, find out what's in each link, just a summary of it, it'll be pretty valuable. But I just want to thank everybody that was on last week. Just another great session. So is there anybody here that has got any topics that they want to spring on?
I just wanted to say just a little story about last night, because Cassie Campbell's coaching with me and my son.
Yeah.
So we're combined with a younger U11 girls team, and their coaching staff were changing in the ref room. And she went to say something to the girls in the room, and this one girl, she looks at the other coaches and she says, "Is that?" And they say, "Yeah, that's her." So they were pretty excited that she was out there coaching at the same time as them. So I got a kick out of that.
Maybe you could talk a bit about her passion, because she brings an energy, Tom, watching her at practice where she jumps into every drill in the games. And
yeah, well, she's been playing. Coaches play in the games, and first she was playing with no shield on, and then I think she thought wouldn't be good to go on TV with stitches on the side of her face, so she's got a visor on now.
So Tom, nobody said when you walked in the dressing room, nobody said that's him. That's
They
Tom.
said, "What's that old fart doing here?"
Well, bunch of old sharks here, I'll tell you. So, welcome, Ray. Sammy, I don't know if you were on when Ray was on. Were you? I don't think so. Ray and Brian Nadolski is on again. Can you just introduce yourself and summarize what we did when the session you were on, what we talked about?
Good morning, everyone. Basically, in a few words, we were talking about working together to develop a vision that would help sponsors to rejoin the entity that takes care of hockey. I'm not using the word that, or the names that are used right now, because I think that we agreed that, at least I've heard a lot of words about, branding, and I think that Hockey Canada is not a good brand right now, so we have to call it something else. But working together to give a new energy to this concept that Wally is promoting for the good of the game.
Thanks for coming on, Ray. I tell you what, I've been pretty busy. I've edited everything from your session and the next one, and I haven't really shared them. So it's sort of the routine is Thursday record, Friday edit, Saturday edit, and maybe share Sunday or Monday, but it depends on how many games I'm going to go to. So thanks for Ray, your session. And actually, the arena naming and the good of the game was a big part of the ceremony and the recognition. And the people that were there were certainly like-minded to us relative to the values of the importance of sport and what it can do for young people. So I just curious, Jordan. Are you on, Jordan? I'm just wondering, or whether you're out covering a phys ed class in your elementary school. No, good. Jordan,
I'm here, but I will be in phys ed in about 3 minutes.
okay. I just want to thank Jordan for arranging the two teams in the Midget AA League to play a game during my ceremony. And Jordan, I've edited lots of pictures from that, and I've got one of you on your bench during the ceremony, and it's in with some wonderful music. So looking forward to sharing it with everyone.
Well, Wally, it was a wonderful event, and I think that very well deserved. And the grouping of people that were there to share that moment with you was absolutely amazing. And to see Tom and a whole herd of sharks there, as well as some guys like Terry Johnson and that were sneaking out on the ice to try and get a better picture, and that tells you what it meant to them as well, Wally. And we all shared in that moment with you, knowing that for many of us, or most of us, that will never happen, to have a legacy named after us that way, but we all shared in that moment with you. And as you and I have chatted about before, is that it's just great when those sorts of things can occur, because it does raise the platform a little bit of the good of the game. And although I heard what you said in your speech about the scoreboard being a distraction, yeah, I got distracted by that scoreboard that night too. So, but we're working on it, and tomorrow's another day for competition. So we'll be the kids will be ready to go tomorrow, and it's been a good week of preparation, And our kids, the other piece, of course, for the good game piece that I'll share with you is that we had one of the teams that we were supposed to play this week is off to a tournament. So we got left with an ice slot that's a game slot, which too much ice is never really a problem. And what we found is one of the U13 teams is going to come and do a combined practice where our kids can do some mentorship with them. After we'll have a small area practice for the first part, and then the second half of it will be a combined one where those girls will get the opportunity to maybe get their first taste of coaching, and hopefully some of them will catch the bug like the rest of us. So,
Well, Jordan,
but I'm going to run to the gym
okay.
And deal with some grade 6s and then grade 5s, and hopefully come back on in a little while.
Okay, see you later.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna, just for everybody here, George Kingston, and for the American friends, George is a pioneering icon in Canadian hockey. He and Dave King, they were sort of the people that provided the coaching education start certification programs. And George, he was inducted into the University of Calgary Sport Hall of Fame last, I think it was Wednesday. And George had an accident, so he was wearing a neck brace. He's being inducted this Friday into the Alberta Sports Hall of Fame, and that's with all kinds of people in international sports, different sports. And it's unfortunate because George came to our ceremony wearing his neck brace, and yesterday I found out he's having surgery today because the neck brace didn't work, and they're going to have to pin two of his vertebrae together just for safety reasons. So I just thought I would mention that, and I'll mention it to Jordan again later or after when he gets on. But I'm looking forward to the ice times I'm going to attend tonight. One with Tom. You're not on the ice tonight, are you?
Yeah, I am.
At
I'm with,
Ekman?
I'm with the other double
Good.
A
I'll
team.
be there. I'm working with Wes, so I'm going to be on the bench with Wes, and looking forward to seeing you tonight. And Saturday I'm going to go because George is not going to be able to go to Red Deer. I'm going to go and watch Jordan's ice time with the young kids and enjoy myself. So great to see you guys doing what you're doing.
There's an hour and a half practice, so we're both gonna. Cassie's gonna run the first 30 minutes of skills and gonna do something, and then we're gonna scrimmage the last 45 minutes. I got a hold of Wes last night, so that's the plan.
Good for you. All right. Okay. Well,
Georgia, I guess he was fixing something. He was a real handyman, and something fell on him. He was doing some carpentry work.
Yeah.
Something fell on him, and that's how this happened.
Yeah. So. Hal, what's up in your world, buddy? Hal Terse. Your speaker, Hal.
Going on it. Got it. Well, I spent 2 weeks in Costa Rica in 85-degree heat and 93-degree humidity. They come back to 28 degrees and snow the first day, but it's warmer now. My Bantam team is up and running. They're Bantam Bees, and most of them haven't discovered where their outside edge is yet. So, but I can tell you now, after 4 or 5 sessions, they know exactly where their outside edges are. I've modified the practice format partly from some stuff I've heard from this group, and we start the kids. They instead of going out and taking slap shots off the glass, they start off in pairs, passing and moving around the rink for about 5-7 minutes, and then we go right into a small area game of some sort. I've been doing, emphasizing the Royal Road and only carrying the puck for 3 seconds or less. Because I've got a couple players that think that the puck is theirs and they don't want to share it with anybody. And then we're also 45 seconds and then change, 45 seconds and change. So they're coming along. They seem to be very enthusiastic. They all say thank you after practice. I don't know if that's become ubiquitous and sort of like have a nice day when you go to the gas station and pay for your gas. But they're polite and they're respectful and they're eager to learn. I shared with them last night, and I've known this for a long time. As a coach, number one, teaching kids to skate better will make them a better team. I mean, it's obvious, but most coaches don't do it. Okay, we spend 20 minutes or 30 minutes out of an hour and 15 just doing skating drills, fundamental C-cuts, Russian chops, all the stuff that they really need. And I told them last night, I've been with them a week now, do you think you're getting better? And they all go, yes. Your skating is getting better. So what from intellectually for me is that I've known this because I ran a skating school for about 8 years. Kids and humans, when they do something and get better, they want more. But when you play the game, it's hard to quantify whether or not you're getting better, right? I mean, on a day-to-day or a week-to-week basis. But these kids now can do skating things they could not do a week ago. And so I'm very excited about this. And again, it came from me. I'm doing boys this year, but I did the same thing with the girls last year. Only had 8 or 9 kids at practice most of the time, and the year before about the same during pandemic. So anyways, I'm just having a ton of fun coaching. I wish I didn't hurt so much in the morning when I get up, but a little ibuprofen kicks in after about an hour and I'm good to go. So thanks for asking. I'm going to send you, Wally, what I think is the best photograph I took or one of the best ones in Costa Rica, because it was a photography trip that I was on, because I have kind of a side hustle doing a lot of photography. And it's a little red-eyed frog. And when you see it, he's only 1 inch long. I'll send it to you. You can send it out to the Sharks.
Right.
He's the cutest little darn thing I've ever seen. And it was in the rainforest, because we were in the rainforest for 13 days at night. And they're only 1 inch long, but we found some, and I got a really great photograph of one, so I'll share it with you. So that's not a shark. We saw crocodiles, caimans, and frogs and lizards, but no sharks on this trip. But again, I'm grateful to be part of this group, and I learned so much from all of you. I wish I got to thinking about to the rest of you. Herbie Brooks was sort of an icon in the United States about the youth game and how to do it, and Herbie's past. And nobody in the United States has replaced him. But Wally, I think of you as the Canadian Herb Brooks, because you're there for everybody. You're there for the kids, the boys, the girls, and everybody else. So I'm honored to know you and to be part of this. So I also now have to run to a meeting. I'm sorry, I do have a day job also. So
What?
I
Tom,
would expect
got a
you-
question for you. Tom?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've seen that picture. It's fantastic. And what's going to happen with our team next week is this company has designed some tool you put on the skate, and Cassie's involved with it, and Messier and all this kind of stuff. And I had a meeting the other day, and it analyzes a skating stride. And I guess you can't feel it. It analyzes a skating stride, and then it tells how long they were on the ice, and how much, really intense work and medium work and low work and all this kind of stuff. So the plan is next week we have a half ice, a full ice, and a game, that the players would wear this in all of these and can look at the comparison. And I guess different parts of blade that you push off, I guess it is an analysis you can help with the teaching of the skating stride. So I don't know that much about it, but it sounds really interesting. So that's what.
Look forward to hearing about. Yeah.
Before you go, Hal, you're working on skating, and you mentioned the kids quantifying improvement. I don't measure this, but when I look at hockey games, watching Tom's teams play and George's teams play, they're lacking one tactical skill. They can all skate, they can all turn, but now you have to focus on evasive tight turns. That's your breakout. And practicing that, the repetition of it, and the way Kim broke it down a few weeks ago was amazing. But that's a lacking skill, that they can all skate, but they can't skate tactically to put it into an advantage to create space and time in a game. And so that's one thing I would focus on deliberately, without a puck and with a puck. It's a recommendation I have for any coaches at any level. Is the most important thing is at elite levels is gaining time and space. And you have to be tactically efficient that way. So I call it tactical skills, not just skills. And I think there's a lot of them out there, but the evasive tight turn is probably the most important one that can have the hugest impact on immediate game performance.
We did a lot, Wally, after your suggestion as our warm-up.
Okay. Mike Benelli, I know you're busy at everything, and I got a question. Because you're involved with sort of the NHL level people promoting what you do, and you're working in the system, minor hockey system there, whether it's private or public. And what is the challenge between with the word elite, professional, and grassroots hockey? That transition, at what point does it become a jungle? And what's your experience there?
I got off the ice this morning at 7 a.m. with a group of high school kids, and a group of fourth graders were getting on the ice. So I would say that it was a little crazy. I'm like, man, it's tough to see 8-year-olds getting dragged into the rink on a school day, but I get it. You got to get your ice time in, I guess. I don't know. I think I'm just a big believer that the word elite is thrown around, way too much. And I think the NHL has not done a great job, or USA Hockey for that matter, of creating what you're saying, grassroots programming, or what I call rational programming. They've done a horrendous job at really offering and supplementing and making it so that more families can participate in hockey without feeling like the only alternative is to play elite hockey. And it's just, there's no, we do a great job in the US, by the way, of introducing hockey. Thousands and thousands of kids. Like we'll do I did a try hockey for free day for girls 2 weeks ago. We had 120 girls sign up. And the problem is now you get them and they're 7, 8, 9 years old. And then the only other option they have in their 10 is to play full ice travel hockey. And to play in another, and I think the NHL and the governing bodies could do a much better job of establishing blocks of time. Sammy Joe brought it up. I mean, that's one of the core tenets and programs that I do, and I work with my organizations. There's no beginner hockey that doesn't start before 11 o'clock a.m. because people would think you're insane. Like why would I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to drag my child out of bed to something they don't even know if they like? And now I'm putting them in an environment where they may never like it, because who likes getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get on a cold ice sheet? So I agree with Sammy Joe. Put the people in there that are stuck. Like the people you're already convinced to play and love hockey are the ones that will show up at 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. And frankly, they might have that dedication level, right? I mean, I think it's I think to drag new. I experienced it with my first child. It was 6:30 in the morning, beginner hockey, and it's miserable. Like nobody's happy there, and I think it's I don't know. I guess the people that would push back on me would be like, well, we got to toughen these kids up, and that's the way hockey is, and you got to. But if your biggest promotional and marketing tool is that our sport gets you up at 5 o'clock in the morning to play crappy hockey, then that's not the greatest marketing tool in the world. But I do think just to answer your question, Wally, I think from my perspective, where I watch this pendulum of everything is getting elite earlier and earlier and earlier. And it's eliminating not only the recreational kid, but it's even eliminating really high level kids that can enjoy the sport, in a lifelong type of environment. And we're squeezing them out way too early.
Mike, I want to make a point here. When I worked with Sammy and the national team, I realized if you're going to play at that highest level, you have to be crazy. And here we are. We have kids who haven't played before them, and their parents are crazy to get up that early to do it because they truly love the game. But I would suggest that maybe it's time for those U15 parents and players to see if they're crazy enough to be an elite player and come out to the ice early. And the one thing I've learned over the years is watching the pro players that trained in the summer with me before there was training, it was only ice time, they did work hard. And if you're going to play at the highest level, the intangible qualities are just so critical. And it doesn't matter what level you play, it's got to be fun. Even the top pro teams, they've got to be enjoying the experience. And I think that's the art of coaching in terms of balancing that work ethic and demand with the quality of play and making sure that you have a good experience. So
yeah, I don't even know if those parents of these young kids are crazy. I just think they don't know any better because we're not guiding them in the right direction. Like they just think it's normal. Like it's not normal. It doesn't need to be normal. I mean, the days of one rink, within an hour radius, like where I am in where Pete is, I mean, there's 70 rinks in an hour of me. I mean, there's no lack of ice time. It's lack of coordinating how that ice time is used and then putting the right people on the ice at the right time and managing all of that. And I think because the governing bodies and the NHL has so much power. I mean, we brought it up on the last call. They have the real power. Like that's really where the top can dictate and spend their money in ways that influence the bottom. And I don't know if they do that. I know they don't do it because I work with them every day. And I think it's a struggle to say, okay, we want to have rookie leagues. We want to have learn to play. We want to have inclusion. We want to have diversity. We want to bring, more people into the big tent of hockey. And we're making it harder and harder for them to do it though after we hook them. Because after they're hooked, there's very, very few options for them. Like down by me, you can go from a junior Ranger rookie league paying $700 for a full season of hockey with equipment, and your next step program is $4,000. And you're giving up every weekend of your life. There's no skiing, there's no soccer, there's no tennis, there's nothing. It's that's it. So, Hal, thank you for. But I know Tom had his hand up and Coach Whitney.
Peter, your speaker.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, Mike really covers it, but I think one of the dangers that we face here, and Mike can chime in too, and I'd be really curious to know if it's the same thing up where you guys are, is if I tell you that your son or daughter is an elite player. You know, I'm coming from the outside, right from one of these AAA quote unquote organizations. And, you know, here's what we do. You know, we got our logos on our bags. Everybody gets a tracksuit and we play here, we travel there. You know, your son or your daughter, you really should play elite hockey. The parents, most parents don't even give a consideration that that individual's running a business. They're trying to fill a team. Is my son or daughter really at that level? I mean, you could convince them anything if you're telling them what they want to hear. And that's a huge responsibility that these organizations have, that I think because of the monetization of it, doesn't happen. And it's so distressing. Like I see with our local organization, I'll look at the high school team, and it's a Division II high school team, which is like, you know, Connecticut High School. There's 1, 2, and 3, so you're right in the middle. And without question, if you go back and you look at the youth organizations that those kids have played at, there's probably 6 to 8 to 10 different organizations that they've played at. And the unfortunate thing is that town has its own youth organization that you can play for right up until high school. So those kids who went out searching for whatever, because maybe they, you know, believe what someone told them, they end up back at the high school. They end up together. So they've missed all that opportunity and of playing together, which skills, sure, maybe a higher level skill instructor, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, at least what I'm seeing in hockey is the IQ factor and the ability to think in a situation is really what's lacking. So you had an opportunity for all these kids, right, to play together growing up, now moving to the high school and really do some damage, and he gets missed just because they listened to or believed what someone told them, and they ended up in the same place as their buddy that was playing, you know, Bantam A the year before.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, only because, you know, when the programs that I advise and when I work with organizations that are coming out new, you know, when they're building rinks and they're looking for, you know, if it was a revenue generator, then they're doing it wrong, because the way you generate revenue is by having the most kids on the most ice, on the least amount of ice at the best price. And AAA travel hockey doesn't do that. If you do the math, it doesn't give you, if your only goal was to make the most money. And what I do is I work with organizations that show you can make the most money and build the best talent. Those can go hand in hand, but charging the most is not necessarily giving you the most on your returning on investment. But again, it's the parents and the people that are in this that are trusting the organized leaders and the people that are running these programs, that they're the subject matter experts. And in a lot of ways, they aren't. They aren't the subject matter experts. They just think, oh, well, that's the organization down the street does that, so our pricing is based off of what their pricing is and how we practice and where we play and what league we're in. And that's all just because that's what everybody else does. And nobody really looks at what the best model actually is.
Mike and Peter, Al Ramsey, who sort of oversees the minor hockey development program in Massachusetts in his community, he posted a video. It was actually a shocking video because his team was on the ice, whole ice hockey, U11, and he posted the video of the parents having a little bit of a scrap near the penalty box. And he commented that the team that they were playing, the coach might receive a lifetime ban for his behavior. Now, Al's trying to promote the good of the game and the ethics of the game. And it wasn't close-up footage, but it was enough footage to see at that age, U11, he's running an ethical program, but he's playing games. I'm assuming they're not elite, that they're community teams like his own. And yet, the behavior of the adults and the players having to see it is shocking. It hasn't changed, so hopefully we can do something about that. Peter?
Yeah, I agree with you. Unfortunately, it hasn't changed because I can remember, and this is probably, honestly, it's probably going back 15 years now. At a game, it was, again, a AAA team had come into town to play. And there was this one parent, the guy was pacing back and forth. And, all of a sudden in the middle of the play, he opened both Zamboni doors behind the bench, walked out on the ice, and I still remember him calling his son by every name. You know, when your kid's in trouble, right? And you use their middle name, right? Or you want their attention, you use their middle name, like, John Jason Smith, come here this instant, that kind of thing. This is in the middle of the game. This guy walks out on the ice, yells to his son, get over here, we're out of here. Goes around to the back of the bench, starts screaming at the coach, telling him that 3 shifts, because this was, I think, the third period, 3 shifts the whole game, we're out of here. It was just incredible. But that was 15 years ago. Al's posting this video now. It's a little bit the definition of insanity, right? Because it's the same things happening over and over again. There's no different result.
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's been around forever. We're just seeing because of Live Barn, we get to see it all the time now. I mean, it's you would almost think the behavior would change based off the fact that you're on camera and that the audio's there, but people just don't care. I mean, Wally has a great couple of videos that he shares with his mission statement workshop. In the baseball, right? Wally with the guy, the baseball parents. I mean, beating the hell out of each other outside of in a 8U game, and it's the perspective is sad, but I do understand how people get heated and it's hard. I get that, but I think there's so many things that we can put in place as organizations to help diffuse these situations. I just had a conversation with the head of officials or one of the heads of officials here in our district, just about how we have to train our officials to be better at conflict resolution, and that we can't always just say, oh, it's the coach's fault. Oh, it's the parents' fault. Because oftentimes when you really look, it's the officials' fault. They don't know how to, they're taking the power of the fact that they're only official left in the whole region and saying, well, it's my way or the highway. And they're not trained in conflict resolution, and they're not trained on how to diffuse a situation. And I think, that goes along, Wally, what you're saying about ethical coaching. There has to be just teaching, not only ethical coaching, but understanding that it is a sport. People do feel like they're invested in this, and they do get emotional and they get, compassionate or passionate. And we need to just be in a situation to understand that. And then what can we put in place that helps people, work through these emotions in the heat of, battle, for lack of a better term.
Listen, Tom, before I turn to you, Peter, I want to make a comment on the parent that opened the Zamboni door. I might have done that because if he only got 3 shifts during the game, obviously it didn't happen just in that game. The bench management and the overplaying of the elite player for the outcome, that's done over a period of time. And he should have approached the coach or the association, or the parents should have recognized outcome coaching at that age, and at any age, isn't appropriate. And
no, I agree. And I think it speaks to what Mike was just talking about too, right? With where's the resolution there? It should never come down to a situation where someone is that angry or that upset that that's what they choose to do at that kind of a moment. It should never get there.
Okay, Tom, did you do your respect in sport module yet?
No, I got to do it yet. I've done it
Do
like
it.
700
I'm
times.
going to advise you. It took me, I probably took 5 hours. It's the most valuable link, 3-hour module that I had to take 2 that deals with what you're talking about. It's unbelievable. And I've been in the business of ethical coaching and respect in sport. And Mike, the module we wrote in 1990, the middle chapter of the video we produced was emotional control. And that's a fundamental sports psych thing, but emotional control also applies to parents, coaches, as well as the players. And when you know what you're there for, you're going to have a better handle on your own behaviors if you start to look at yourself. So, Tom, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just have a little story to tell from 1959. I was in Little League Baseball.
Were you born yet, Mike? Okay.
No.
I turn 75 tomorrow, so that's a hint. So 1959, we're in Little League Baseball, and we're in the city semifinals or something like this. We were pretty good. And the umpire lost track of the count. And our coach went ballistic and took us off the field, and our season was over. And I still remember that. And I said, what a friggin' idiot. And, so I just want to say that it's not a new thing, for sure.
Yeah. No, and I don't think it's getting worse. I just think it's more prevalent. But again, it's not. But I don't think the problem is nobody. I mean, the fact that we can't come up with a solution is really more of the thing. More of the concerning piece of this is that well, why aren't we proactively working with families about educating them, to how destructive that is for a kid. When Tom Malloy could come up and speak about something that happened in 1959 and still be all worked up about it. It's like, well, okay, well then maybe we're our perspectives are a little off here. But again, you're right? That's the whole premise of how a coach influences you, right? A coach can make one comment to you when you're 9 years old, and it could last you the rest of your life. And that just shows you how much like the impact we make on kids. And I would hope now, Tom, let me ask you a question, because that's in your memory bank. Is that something you always thought about? Like if you got to the point where you felt you were going to do that with your own team, like pull your team off the ice, or just like look at these coaches that there's so many penalties and there's so many, like you feel like there's no control. Would you just take your kids off the ice, or would you find a way to work through that adversity?
Well, I have taken my kids off the ice once. I was doing a bantam team, and we were at, a higher level than this team that was leading the city in the lower level. And this guy thought he wanted a game against us and was sure he'd beat us, and we were beating them. And then he started sending out like NHL guys to beat our guys up. Like every shift, guys were like, it was unbelievable. And he threw all the sticks on the ice. And this is just an exhibition game. And I said, we're not playing anymore. And I went off, and I had to go to a hearing. They were going to kick me out of hockey. And I said, there's no way my kids, and the problem was, because I'm coaching a higher level, my kids were winning all the fights too. Because
and insult to injury.
I'll just tell you another story about this coach. He wasn't a real happy-go-lucky guy, because we went, the whole team, we went to a minor pro baseball game or something like that. So one of the kids, he got up for a hot dog, and he came back, and a kid put a whoopee cushion under where he was sitting. So he sits down, and it's a big loud fart, eh? And everybody's laughing. He was so mad. So he wasn't the right guy to do that with.
Listen, Sammy Joe, before I'm going to ask Ray a question, but before I do, female sports, I don't care what they are. Do they go do they lose track of perspective to that degree? And if not to that degree, to what degree do they lose perspective?
Yeah, interesting question. I think that it isn't as prevalent in women's sport, because there isn't the end result perceived by parents at this point. I mean, there is still amazing opportunities for young women in the game. And there's probably more crazy parents in hockey than any other sport I've ever been around, in women's hockey, than any other sport. But I mean, that's what I always loved about school-based sports, is that it, isn't about the parents, it's about the kids. And so whenever I've been around volleyball or basketball or anything at the school versus a club-based sport, there is a huge difference there. And once you enter into a club, then I think that that's where expectation of parents gets a little bit higher, expectations of coaches gets a lot higher, and of their own athlete and the money they're putting in. I did the Respect in Sport recently too. And one thing that really popped out to me was, as a parent, to never use the language with your child that, I'm paying a lot of money for this and you need to do X, Y, and Z. And, that's something you hear so prevalently in sport. And it's hard as a parent not to sort of get pulled in that direction. That if your kid sits on the ice for 1 hour, you're so angry. I think my worst parenting moment was probably my daughter playing soccer. She was only 3 or 4. I mean, she was so young. It was like miniature soccer. And she just sat in the middle of the field and didn't want to play. And so I went over to her and I said, because we always get ice cream at McDonald's, you get an ice cream cone on the way home if you do well. And I said, do you want the ice cream on the way home or you don't? And she's like, no, I don't want it. And I said, okay, well, then you can sit here if you want, but the coaches really want you to be out there and like playing with the other kids. And it looks like a lot of fun. She's like, I'm having a lot of fun right here. So, okay. So I walked back and I tried to be that good controlled parent, like just let the coaches take care of it. It's fine. And she sat there for another half an hour, having just a blast, picking the grass and doing her thing. So then on the way home, we stopped at McDonald's and I got myself an ice cream and didn't get her one. I was so angry. I was seething and I just like licked it in front of her. And I still remember that moment of like, how much perspective I've lost. It doesn't matter. But it was in my mind, like it was the embarrassment of the situation. It was, you've gone to all this effort to get this kid there and they're not liking it. And yeah, anyways, so I there's still all of that within me. I still have to control some of that sometimes.
Before I turn over to Mike, Ray, I'm going to come back to you after. I'm thinking of 2 words that you brought up in your talk. You distinguished how important the difference between expectations and aspiration. I think that would help with this conversation. But Mike, we'll come back to you later, Ray. Go ahead, Michael.
No, I'll be quick because I want to hear Ray. But I think it's there's a video going around right now. It makes that same point, Sammy, is like this kid hits a home run and he little kid like 8-year-old gets it inside the Parker, right, and then he's running and from third base to home he tumble salts all the way, like doing roll, and everybody's like, what do you do, like screaming, and he's just like, I don't know, I'm having, this is something that's fun for me and I'm obviously getting a rise out of everyone. And that's like the perspective of like, he doesn't care about the home run. He doesn't even care about, the winning of the game. He just like, okay, this is going to be a fun thing for me to do. And I'm going to enjoy myself. And I think I did the same thing just a couple of weeks ago with my 9-year-old, like where everybody else, like you watch me on the ice with my little rookie league kids and like they're laying on the ice. I'll be like, okay, oh, you're tired, make snow angels, have some fun. And I caught myself with my own kid the other day. I'm like, you got to get up, stop laying on the ice. You're embarrassed. Don't you want to be out here? And I'm going, oh, maybe he doesn't want to be out here, or he does like being out here, but he just likes doing this. So I think it's just so hard though, as a parent, as a coach, giving your time, you go to someplace like, and then I try to reflect and say, well, I've never, ever done that on the playground. Like I've never, ever been disappointed if I watched all the other kids trying to do flips on the swings and my son didn't. Like I've never been like, don't you want to do what they're doing? Like, so it's so weird when we get into the arena of sport, how our whole mindset
that's a really
changes.
great perspective to think that way, because that is super helpful for me. It's really easy to get embarrassed if your kid is the one, right?
Yeah, and my problem is I'm like and then as a parent you're focused because it is the one, because it's only watching your own kid, but then you don't like I joke around with about my teenager and they're like, is all teenagers like this? It can't be. And they're like, no, everyone's like this. They're all the same. And it's just different levels of, you know, how you're embarrassing them and how you know, they're embarrassing you. But I think it's just a matter of what is your perspective on that. And I think it's so hard when you are a competitive person to be like, well, don't you want to be competitive? Like, don't you want to go out there and be better than that kid? And they're like, well, no, I don't. It doesn't. One last story, and I'll end it. But so my little guy was taking face-offs, and against like a 5-year-old. Like he was 8, and this little 5-year-old kept like, oh, this kid keeps beating me on the face-offs. He's beating me. He's beating me. He's beating me. So me being like the coach in him, I'm like, oh my God, the kid beat you on every face-off. What are you going to do about it? He goes, I think I'm going to play wing. And I'm like, no, aren't you gonna get better at face-offs? What do you mean? So I'm like, don't you want to learn how to take a face-off? He goes, no, I'm just gonna go play wing. And I'm like, okay, well, it kind of opened my eyes up a little bit. But
Michael, I
Ray,
just need you every time I come home from any athletic event. I just need you as like a parent advisor to me specifically in my ear. Okay.
Yeah, no problem. I need the same thing. So we'll get a text chain going, a support frustration chain, I guess. But go ahead, Ray. Sorry about that.
I'm listening to all these stories and I feel privileged because my 3 kids were never a problem that way. They were always kind of driving when they were either on the basketball court or the soccer field or football. I never had to say, well, don't you feel like, it was like, let's go. And maybe they learned that kind of dovetails into what you've been talking about, Mike, and I think Peter's raised it too, and Wally's always talking about it. It's about the parents. The parents, I think, set the tone for the kids. So to Wally's point, you wanted me to talk about expectations and aspirations. And I'm thinking about an instance where this is minor sport, soccer, and obviously the person was a good coach because he took the time to kind of get the kids around at the beginning and say, what do you want? What do you want out of this exercise? Because, you know, like we're all here, we're here to play soccer. I don't know much about, you know, like he's a volunteer coach. And the kids pretty well all said, we want to have fun. And that kind of has rung in my head and resonated. And in the last few years, working with varsity coaches and athletes, I've kind of injected this concept of aspiration as opposed to expectation. Because what I was observing, and now I'm talking about women's hockey, you know, like at the beginning of the year, you know, what are your expectations? And I expect you to score 20 goals because, you know, like you can. And the fact of the matter is that when you talk about expectations, you set bars. And in my work with athletes and in business, because I do the same thing with business executives or mid-management, is what about just thinking in terms of helping people reach their full potential? And that's through aspiration. And if you inject that word into the discussion, as opposed to expectations, yeah, it sounds weird at first. And the athletes kind of say, you know, like, what do you mean? So it talks about the fact that, you know, I can't go without linking it to what Wally's talking about all the time, the good of the game, is that the focus, you know, like I listened to what you're saying, Mike and Peter and Tom, you know, like when you see derailment, I'll use that term, in the way of a team or an individual kind of not being focused on giving his best or best, I think that the missing part is the why. And, you know, it starts with the parents. It goes with the coaches, the referees, the players. I think that we have to do a better job of talking about why we are doing this thing, and how can we aspire to being the best every time out? And then you won't have this business of throwing sticks on the ice and, like parents getting into a fight in the stands. One of the things that I do at times, because they ask me, I know people, and I work with the girls under 12 hockey association here in Ottawa, all the parents, because there was some problems in the organization. They wanted to try and smooth out things. So we got all the parents together and we talked about, and we're talking about coaches, we're talking about parents, we're talking about setting a course for these individuals. And, like now we're talking about the whole organization. I don't know, they had 10, 12 teams. Setting the course on how the words are going to be transferred to help people start believing that that's what will create the environment of fun for those kids. And if everybody's aligned on that, making it fun for the kids, I think that it goes a long way to eliminate these individual agendas that sometimes mess it up for a team or a coach or anybody involved around the organization.
Ray, I want to comment on that. Everybody here knows about my mission. I want to bring up that respect in sport. I got an email from the coordinator of Girls Hockey Calgary that said, Wally, you haven't completed your respect in sport. And I did about 10 years ago. And I said, I thought I had. And she said, well, the requirement is that you have to do it again. So I started it and I phoned Jordan at the same time. And Jordan said to me, and Tom, you can do this. You can turn it on. And, there's about 12 modules. Now, at the end of the module, you have to click continue. And they're unbelievable modules. Like I got into it listening to them, but they were all reactive. How do you deal with this when this happens? Why is it happening? Get your heads up. Let's do things better, and telling. But it was still better than what I did 10 years ago. So Jordan suggested to me, well, everybody they turn it on, they come back and click continue, and they turn it on. They don't listen to it. That entered my mind until I started listening to it. And there's a Respect in Sport Association. The model is so well laid out to do. It took me a while to get into it through Hockey Alberta, figure out how to operate it using a password. And I had to make a couple calls during it because some things didn't work well, and that was my fault, but they were patient with me. I feel the thing that they're missing is the mission statement exercise, because everything they're doing is good and reactive, trying to be preventative, but really not really getting to the guts of the ethics of why they're there for, what they're there for. So I just wanted to share that. And Tom, you've been procrastinating about getting it done, and you really don't need it, because when I read it, I get this. But they have some questions in there where you have to choose and you don't get the answer right. You keep clicking on different answers, and finally you understand the perspective of the answer, because the competitive part came out to me in what I might allow happen. Pretty reasonable. So I just wanted to throw that in. I thought the timing was terrific. Related to that, I've still got to complete my police check. And Tom wanted me to do it while he was working at SATA. I never could figure out the technology of it, so I didn't get it done. But now I'm going to drive over to the station and get it done, probably for the 6th or 7th time. But these are the hoops you have to jump through and be patient with, but they're important hoops. Because
I hate
the game-
that thing too, because there's a Tom Malloy who's a criminal in Edmonton. So every
Oh.
time I do it, I gotta go get my fingerprints taken to prove I'm not this guy.
Anyway, anybody else got anything else to add to the fuel to the fire here? I'm gonna try to edit this, but I'm not sure I'll get to it. I'm glad, Sammy, you were able to get on today, and Ray, go ahead, Ray.
It's for Mike. We connected, and maybe we can go offline on this, but I wanted to try and follow up on our potential discussion. So let me know.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I don't do much all day, so I got a lot of time.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah, I could talk about hockey all day. I was Pete and I were talking the other day. I said we got to start monetizing this somehow. But I think it's but again, I just take like even like little things that come out of these calls are so beneficial to me because I can bring like you. It's and a lot of it's reminders. Like Wally, you're just saying about being on. Like we don't give people the tools to be proactive before something happens, right? It's a lot of reactive. And I think that is it's a very keen point that if we're always, having a parent meeting after the issue happens, then, we could change that very easily by just, establishing that we have to have these things done ahead of time. But I think people are really, that's where people find they don't have the time. Like, that's why I make the time to do things like this, because my time to do this proactively helps me when I need to actually be in the field and work with my athletes. So, I mean, and more importantly, probably the parents, because that's really who I'm working with. I mean, I'm working with parents of, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds and trying to, I don't want to say convince them, but to kind of frame where we are in the hockey journey and the athletic journey, that it doesn't have to all be all in right now. And just like you said, Raymond, with your kids, I mean, in a lot of ways, I just think that's the kids you see all the time, right? You see the one kid that just doesn't need any motivation and they do it. But I do see a lot of really good kids that can go down a different path if they're not around the right people and the right environment. So sometimes there is a little bit of coaching in there because it's just so easy for kids nowadays. Like me, I didn't need motivation. I was so bored that I would go outside and play and shoot and skate, and because there was no other thing you could do. I mean, maybe blow up GI Joes with with firecrackers. That was about it. So there was nothing else to do. But now these kids they could do anything. Yeah, and again, I'm not anti-gaming. I'm not anti-phone. I'm not anti, tablets. But I am anti the fact that it's too easy for them to. And I think you see adults all the time. I'm on the train all the time, and I see everybody, like every single person on the train is playing. I don't even know what the name of the game is, like bubble burst or whatever the and there's just mindless. It's just not. And I think that's where our kids go. Our kids go into the place where it's just they don't have to think and they don't have to compete. And that is, I think it's a bigger problem that we're going to see down the road. And, I guess who doesn't care? Probably the kids that can get through that and, aren't exposed to that and aren't motivated by that. But I think there's just a lot more other kids that the ease of electronics and virtual reality and, not being active is easier. And frankly, it's easier for parents, right? It's easier for a parent to say, hey, just go in the room and play Xbox instead of me having to go outside and play with you because I'm busy.
I watch my grandkids and I see it like in spades. and it scares me. But to the point of what can we do to frame, and I'll use minor hockey as the vehicle here, because I have done it with some coaches. The idea is that before the season starts, like you build a team, like I guess, I don't know how it works in your area, but you're given a bunch of kids. The first thing it should happen, and Wally is, as we've talked about that because he's done it, is get the parents together and set the course, like, and the big thing is why, so that they kind of integrate in their thinking that if they're going to send their kids to hockey, and it's going to cost them time and sometimes psychological effort because they have to push the kids out, like all of this, if it's kind of discussed ahead of time so that there is a common alignment on why we're doing this, so that those kids that are kind of lagging behind are helped to create that enthusiasm for being with the group. And now comes the point of parents and coaches staying away from, like overplaying a player or not playing a player, or as Wally talks about all the time, is how you talk to the player so that they don't kind of say, well, if that's the kind of treatment I'm going to get, they kind of sit in their corner and they don't, I have to come here because my parents pay and want me to be here, but I really don't care to be there. So proactivity as opposed to reactivity includes that, and maybe repeat the exercise after Christmas, because like I've done it with varsity players where first semester, and then we don't start the second semester until we've gone through this team building refocusing exercise that lasts 5 or 6 hours, going over the reasons why, and like the players kind of talking between themselves. And probably, Sammy Joe, you've gone through this kind of exercise at the level that you've played, where like you're not going to go out on the ice before you kind of look at each other and say, why are we here and how am I going to help you be the best? And to my way of thinking, because I have experienced it, it doesn't need the kid to be 16 or 18. You can do it with kids that are 10 years old. As a matter of fact, they buy into that better than the older kids. At least that's what I've found in football.
Ray, you got to do it with the parents of the 10-year-old kids. I think the kids get it at that age. In fact, they'll get it at other ages. And I almost think they'd be better off coaching themselves rather than coaching by overzealous coaches and overzealous parents. Peter Whitney.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on what Ray alluded to early on in this recent conversation here about the parents and the expectations and that. So I think one of the issues that I see when I have gone to and sort of been the fly on the wall in the parent meeting, right? The preseason parent meeting is, like Ray was saying, is we were supposed to sort of handle these things. But typically the way the preseason parent meeting goes, at least in the town organizations that I've seen, is, the individual get on there. I'm the president. This is Coach so-and-so. Here's what we do here. Jerseys cost this much. We need you to work in the snack bar, and the apparel is available online. And you have any problems, talk to me. And that's usually the way it goes, as opposed to take that opportunity. Because one of the things, like Wally, with what you did with that mission statement, I don't know why I do know why, but every organization should be doing that, because at the end of the day, any of us that have either coached or played and been successful in either arena, I think the number one reason that you were successful is because trust was created. You trusted your coach, you trusted your teammates, you trusted the process. There's very little, if any, time spent on creating that same kind of a trust with the parents in the organization. Because if the parents trust you, they'll follow, they'll do whatever you need them to do. But to Ray's point, for sure, that initial meeting, at least what I've seen, needs to be better, and those things need to happen. I've been talking to our local youth organization guy, and it's been president's been a little bit frustrating because his concern seems to be that learn to skate, learn to play or fall, we're good. And we got a guy that's a hockey director, and he's really good. He's firm. He can yell at the coaches, and if there's problems, he'll talk to the parents. And I just said, well, what if we could set up some sort of a system so that you didn't have to have those conversations, or they were at least minimized? And he just kind of stared at me. So it gets frustrating, but stay at it.
That's why, Wally, when we've talked between us, we need resources. We need to get sponsors that will support that effort of spreading that knowledge, like you're saying, Peter, that the exercise, that it's done in a structured, strategic, and systematic way, and that people are trained in doing it so that you make sure that it gets integrated in the process of launching a season.
Well, Ray, I just wanted to mention during the Respect in Sport, I called Shelley Coolidge. Now, for everybody here, Shelley used to coach the University of Ottawa female team. Ray had me come in for both the male and female team years ago. And Shelley coached at Carleton and the University of Ottawa. Now she's working with a sports leadership group that's related to ethical coaching. But as soon as I did this Respect in Sports site task, assigned and compulsory by every coach before they can coach, I said, that's what this needs to be done. Before that, with that, complementing that, it almost is the essence of a starting point. But right now, for all of you, everybody has a code of conduct, list of rules, expectations, and behaviors. So I'm working on it, and it's not, I really haven't made any headway, but I've just spent this past week taking that mission statement module, in which I would do at a Coach 1 level, and then suggestions what you could do at Coach 2, which is full ice, Development 1, which is competitive, AA, AAA, and then HP 1, the highest level that you can get. So hopefully that works. I'd like to thank you all for coming on today. Jordan, are you back from the field or the classroom? I don't think so. I'm got an interesting story. Tom relates to Jordan. There was a player that did not make the midget AA team, and she played in the Alberta Challenge, which is zone teams, and she played on the gold medal team. And Tom said she looks pretty good, most skilled player on the ice, but she's small. So she got overlooked, and the parents called Tom to see if he would work with her, but he's too busy coaching, and he passed it on to me. So I called Jordan, and Jordan knew the girl well because he was the um, mentor for that team in the Alberta Zone Camp, and he knew the player well. He also felt that she's too small to play defense, and there's things she had to work on, and she got overlooked. But she's playing midget A, and I am working formally with the parents and her. And last night, Tom, I got an email from the mother, said she's been affiliated with the other midget double A team, which means she's going to get called up. And I don't work with them, but I did meet the assistant coach, a young lady, at the induction ceremony because she was on the bench with the team that played Jordan. And hopefully I'll be able to go and see both teams practice and play with, and hopefully she's in the lineup. But I'm watching her play midget A, where she's the most skilled player. Is moving to forward because she's 5 feet tall and 100 pounds. And she's going to be a pretty good forward, but we'll see what we can do to get her to get to the next level. She's an outstanding student. She's taken at a charter school, taken what they call a baccalaureate advanced course, and she's probably going to drop out of the math course because if she's affiliated, there's a far greater degree of commitment to your hockey. So she wants the opportunity to get called up. So I just thought I would share that. It'll bring me to the rink a little more and would be able to watch a couple Sharks while they come to the rink as well. So anyway, Ray, thanks for popping in. Do so anytime. I had no idea of who would be on or when they would get on today, but I've got a free weekend now that George is not going to go to the ceremony for induction in Red Deer, so I'm available to be in the rinks more this weekend. And of course, that's all I've got time to do now. That's all the time I've got to do. So
Jordan's
welcome
back
back,
with
Jordan. We're just about to wrap things up here, but I don't know whether anybody has anything to add or can summarize in a nutshell what Jordan might have missed.
Well, Wally, I just want to thank you for putting this on again. And I'm so glad that you had a wonderful weekend and everybody got to celebrate with you. Jordan, you just missed how terrible we all are as parents. That's pretty much it.
Well, being a school administrator, Sammy, I choose not to judge parents on their parenting skills.
We were judging ourselves, so we were having a good laugh about it.
I see the good, the bad, and the indifferent. And sometimes the indifferent is worse than the bad.
Okay, Sammy, see ya. Jordan, one thing Ray talked about, maybe I can get him to, for your situation, to just quickly get back to it. Ray, what happens and I could talk the NHL and I could talk Jordan's midget double A team, but even the triple A team, because oh boy, it's triple A, it's elite, and they want to win. But what you said about distinguishing between clarifying the difference between expectations and aspirations is so important to providing a sense of perspective in what you do. And I have a good friend in Prince Edward Island. Al Andrews is not on it with us anymore, but he has his U8 kids have a dream goal. NHL, yes. But then he wants you to have a goal after the dream goal. So he has an aspiration goal. He didn't use the term. You should always aspire to be the best. You know, and I throw out the quote, a man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's a heaven for? But can you just mention that for Jordan's sake and even for mine? I would like to sort of make that point because to me, it's the problem And it may be a tipping point for us to sell to elite teams.
You know, like I've listened mostly today and last time, and for Tom and Jordan, I've been talking with Wally for ages and working at times with him. And, you know, taking a step back and looking at what's happening right now around hockey in Canada, I think that the pressure is mounting. I'll use those words. Maybe it's, you know, the reason is growing for a shift. We have to shift the focus. You know, it's fine to develop athletes, and I've been watching it for ages. I've done it myself as a coach. But it has to be done in a vase or an environment where, you know, the kids and parents and coaches and everybody involved is aligned on a common purpose, which is very well summarized by this motto of for the good of the game. And it's about respect, and it's about trust, and it's about, well, I'll use one of the values of Steve Kerr, compassion. We all have different skills and abilities. So if we start as coaches thinking about how we handle our athletes, you know, some will respond a certain way, others the other way. Some will not be able to, and some will just exceed what we think they can. But if we kind of work to create that environment where people kind of aspire to a higher level, and that doesn't happen, you know, like we've been talking about it, you know, like I am on this call because Wally kind of insisted about, you know, like we have to think of a way of getting that exercise into the hands of everybody. And to my way of thinking, it's through sponsors providing the resources so that people like Wally can be a mentor to a number of other people and working the concept down into hockey organizations so that it's not, you know, like Peter listed, you know, like what happens when they start the season and the hockey director or whatever the name is, a convener or whatever, calls the parents in and he talks about jerseys, hockeys, ice time, you know, like whatever, but nothing is said about how we're going to behave towards each other. And that can only happen, as far as I'm concerned, if we facilitate it. But more than that, find resources to make it happen. And I think that the time is so appropriate right now because of what's been going on lately that we can interest sponsors like Canadian Tire and Nike and Esso and RBC to put money into doing the right thing. I can't say it's any simpler than that.
Well, you've summarized what I want to accomplish very well. Tom and Jordan are still in the trenches, Ray. You and I are sort of in the business of leadership and consultation and advising, and I have nothing else to do in my life, and I've dedicated it to it. But Jordan, I just wanted to bring you up to date. I talked to you about the girl that didn't make, that was a pretty good player on your team that you mentored in the Alberta Cup.
Yeah.
And last night I got an email. She's been affiliated with the other midget AA team.
Sorry, no, Bantam. She'd be UA. She's U15.
She's playing U15 now, and she's affiliated with the midget AA team.
I don't know how that happened.
Well, that's what I've got. She's too old for the Bantam team. She made the midget U15 team, but at any rate, I ran into the assistant coach, Roberta, at the ceremony, and it just happened that I worked with her father at Hockey Canada, who was a video coach for Dave King's team. But
Okay.
anyway, she's affiliated with them, and I'm excited she'll get an opportunity to maybe practice a few times and play a few games and see what she has to do to develop. But she has made the transition to forward, and I'm sort of in the role of getting the most out of her and transmitting belief with her that she can get to the next level. And it's going to be a tough road because now on even the female side, she's too small. So we're trying to get her to learn how to play faster, becoming a forward and survive, and maybe create more time and space with her skill than she thought was possible to see the ice and make plays. So that's my goal with her. So I'm starting to formally work with her and her parents, watching practices and games pretty quick this Sunday in particular. And Jordan, I'll be at the Saturday session. I want to watch your girls work with your girls. See you, Ray. I won't be there for the practice, but you're going to practice first, and then the girls are going to join you. Is that the
Yeah, they're coming on around 3:15, I think.
3:15? Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic thing to have your girls out there working with them under your guidance, and a great opportunity for all of you. So
Well, Jordan offered it to me, but we gotta practice we have a full ice at 12:30 or something like that. But my
okay,
team,
Jack, I'm
I just
gonna
want
have
to make
to slip out of here today, and who knows where we're going to go with the editing. With all this celebration is sort of going to settle down and get over with. But again, another session with so much good information, a lot of people's input. So tonight, Tom, are you at Ectus tonight? 8 o'clock?
yeah.
Okay, I'll see you there. Looking forward to, meeting Wes on the bench and spending time with him. And I'm really looking forward to it. So
Well, Cassie's
best.
gonna do the
All the
first
best,
half
and,
hour.
keep your head above water, boys. Okay?
Yeah. See you,
Take
Wally.
care. Bye-bye.
See you later.